Welcome to the deep dive. We are diving headfirst into a really interesting document. A listener sent this one over to us, and it's a business plan for a stem cell research center.
Yeah, it's called Go Forward.
Go Forward, and it's based in the UAE. And today, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to pull out the most important insights from this thing and give you a shortcut to understanding this potential venture as well as this whole exciting field that it's in.
Yeah, this isn't just like a casual proposal. This is like a really detailed roadmap. They cover everything, like the market they're going into, obviously, the services that they actually want to offer, the team they're putting together, their financial expectations, and even how they actually plan to run this thing.
Right.
So it gives us a really good look inside a company that really wants to be a big player in a really exciting field.
Yeah, and I think one of the first things that jumps out at you when you look at this plan is they talk about like the projected growth in the stem cell market. Right. So globally, we're talking about going from almost $14.6 billion in 2022 to over $40.6 billion by 2032.
40 billion.
That is a huge jump.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting about that 40 billion number is that it shows us there's not just a growing interest, but there's a huge economic incentive for innovation in this space.
Yeah.
And so, Go Forward, they're trying to position themselves as like right at the front of this wave, not just riding it, right?
Right.
You want to be pushing it forward. We see a very similar thing happening in China. Their market is expected to more than double over that same period.
Right.
But closer to home for Go Forward, the UAE market itself, you're looking at going from $0.6 billion to $1.34 billion.
Okay.
So that's a big sign, right? There's momentum there. They're tapping into this expanding demand.
All right. So clearly there's a lot of growth. Let's kind of zero in on the UAE specifically. So, what is the existing healthcare landscape there? And what makes it potentially a good place for a stem cell research center like this one to pop up?
Yeah. So the business plan highlights a few things about the UAE healthcare system for you.
Mm-hmm.
First off, citizens in the UAE, they actually get free medical care.
Right.
So that kind of sets the stage for the baseline of what healthcare could be like there. The second thing is that there's a growing private sector.
Okay.
And that's really being driven by initiatives like the government requiring health insurance for foreign residents.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And since the UAE has a ton of people from other countries living there,
Yeah.
that private sector, growth is a big opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And then in terms of the medical infrastructure, they've got almost 1,200 hospitals and primary care institutions. So that suggests they've got a network there.
Okay.
That the Go Forward could tap into, right?
Yeah.
They can plug themselves in.
Yeah. And I think when you look at the types of illnesses that are prevalent there, it really underscores the need for some more advanced medical solutions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. The plan mentions that non-communicable diseases, so things like cancer, cardiovascular disease,
Right.
diabetes, respiratory problems, these kinds of chronic conditions,
Right.
they actually make up 55% of all the deaths in the UAE.
Wow.
That's a huge number. And, to give that some perspective, in 2019, the UAE, they spent 2.7% of their entire GDP just trying to deal with these issues.
That's wild.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big economic driver, right? There's a lot of pressure to find more effective treatments.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the stem cell research comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Now, the demographic breakdown in the UAE, also pretty interesting. We're talking over 10 million people.
Okay.
And there's a pretty significant male majority.
Oh, yeah. How significant?
Almost 69% male. Wow.
Okay.
They also mention a really high per capita GDP.
Right.
And a life expectancy of 78 years. So we're talking about a relatively wealthy population with a very, very clear need for advanced healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Right. Now, when you look at kind of the specific health challenges, the plan really identifies the most common cancers.
Yeah.
So in men, it's liver, colorectal, and leukemia.
Okay.
And for women, it's breast cancer, colorectal, and leukemia.
Got it.
So that kind of granularity, it probably really informs their research priorities.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, where can they actually have the biggest impact?
Right. Where are they going to make the most the most difference for people.
Exactly. Now, what about lifestyle factors? They
Yeah.
touched on this in the plan, and it really seems like some of that, plays a role in the overall health picture.
Oh, definitely. They talked about how the climate is a tropical desert climate.
Right.
So, it's super hot there. And that can actually make cardiovascular issues worse for some people.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Also, their traditional Arab diet, which is often, high in calories and fat, is contributing to some pretty high obesity rates.
Yeah.
Right? Over 44% in adult women, almost 31% in adult men.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, right? Because they actually link that directly to the high prevalence of diabetes.
Right.
It's affecting about 17% of both men and women there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a direct connection there. Lifestyle, these diseases like diabetes, which, is an endocrine system disease, and then stem cell research.
Yeah.
Especially what Goal Forward is interested in. They talk about safe endocrine system repair.
Yeah.
So it all kind of, it all feeds into itself.
Yeah, it's fascinating how it all kind of comes together, It also sounds like the legal environment is, pretty friendly to a venture like this.
Oh, yeah. So the plan highlights this one big advantage, and it's that foreign joint ventures and wholly owned enterprises, they're treated the same as local companies.
Okay.
Right. Like in terms of taxes, land ownership, all that stuff. And even better, companies that are registered in these free zones, they get exemptions on a bunch of taxes and duties.
Nice.
Right. So that's a clear find, right?
Yeah.
The government is interested in getting investment in the medical field.
Right.
And that could be a big, big help for Goal Forward.
All right. So we've talked about this market opportunity. It seems pretty promising.
Yeah.
Now let's actually get into, what Goal Forward is all about and what they plan to offer. So, what's their core philosophy? What drives them?
So their big thing is scientific R&D.
Okay.
Research and development.
Okay.
Right? They see their research outcomes, like, what comes out of their research as the engine, right?
Yep.
The thing that's going to power their services and how they grow.
Yeah.
Their goal is to build this really integrated platform that brings together like education, industry, technology, and capital.
That's ambitious.
Oh, it's big.
Yeah.
It's a big vision, right?
Yeah.
So for you, the listener, this isn't just about them setting up a clinic to treat patients. It's about this whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
They're trying to create something much bigger.
Yeah. Okay. And what specific areas of, the biomedical industry are they kind of focusing on?
So it's pretty broad. They're really at the cutting edge of a lot of different things, obviously stem cells.
Right.
But they also list bionic medicine, nanomedicine, antibody drugs, and genetic engineering.
Wow.
So they're looking at a whole range of like really innovative therapeutic approaches. It's could be a lot of exciting advancements coming from them.
So I'm curious, in terms of the actual services that they're going to provide, what are we talking about?
So they outlined a few key areas. One is creating like these public management and technology service platforms. Then they want to develop health big data solutions.
Right.
Which, as we know, are becoming more and more important in personalized medicine.
For sure.
They want to actually produce raw materials for the cosmetics industry.
Interesting.
And get this, they even want to offer telemedicine services to exchange medical expertise.
Wow. So it's pretty diverse.
Oh, very diverse. It goes way beyond just, treating patients directly.
Okay. But I imagine, like, the real, the core of their work is going to be these stem cell therapies themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So what specific treatment projects are they mentioning?
So they highlight a few. One is what they call safe digestive system repair.
Okay.
And they're going to do this using metabolism injection plus cytokines. And, for those who don't know, cytokines are basically these molecules that help cells talk to each other.
Right.
And they play a big role in tissue repair. Another project they're looking at is safe motor system restoration. And this one uses mesenchymal stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
And these are pretty cool because they're like master cells, right?
Yeah.
They can turn into different types of tissue, including bone.
Right.
So Goal Forward sees them as really key for repairing motor systems.
Yeah.
And then maybe the most interesting one is they want to do safe endocrine system repair for diabetes.
Okay.
So the goal there is to use stem cells to make insulin-producing islet beta cells.
Right.
Now this could be huge.
Yeah.
Right. This could revolutionize how we treat diabetes. So that's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly promising, especially for, the people out there who are dealing with these conditions.
Sure.
Now, it sounds like they're also planning to offer self-storage services as well.
Yeah, that's a big part of their plan, how they want to make money.
Yeah.
They want to offer storage for all kinds of stem cells, including those that you get from cord blood, umbilical cord, placenta, and even fat tissue. They also want to set up this public resource bank of cord blood,
Okay.
which is pretty cool. And they'll also store autoimmune cells and granulated adipose tissue. But they're not just stopping at, basic storage. They're also talking about this universal stem cell service,
Interesting.
right? And what they call targeted enhancement
Yeah.
of specific immune cells. So they're talking about NK cells. Those are the natural killer cells that are really important for your immune system.
Right.
CIK cells, DC-CIK cells, and NKT cells.
Gotcha.
And mesenchymal stem cells, too. So it sounds like they're moving toward these more personalized and proactive immune therapies.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting. Now, one of the really cool things I thought was that they actually included some examples, some compelling examples of stem cell therapy outcomes.
Yeah.
They want to show you, like, the potential impact.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, help you visualize it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the examples, they talk about the 77-year-old man who had a stroke.
Okay.
And he actually showed improved limb function and less dizziness after receiving NK cell and mesenchymal stem cell interventions.
Wow.
Right.
That's incredible.
And then they've got this 80-year-old woman with intestinal cancer who they say experienced a better mental state. She was able to eat more on her own and needed less pain medication after NKT and NK cell therapy.
Okay. So these are pretty compelling results.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the one that's probably the most interesting to a lot of people is they talk about this actress, Zhong Li,
Okay.
who at 50 years old underwent stem cell anti-aging treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And she says she had, more energy, felt more confident, and was even hoping it would improve her ovarian function.
Interesting.
Right. Now, obviously, these are just individual stories.
Right.
But, they give you a little glimpse into the potential.
Yeah.
Right. Like what might be possible with these therapies.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Now, how do they see themselves stacking up against the competition,
Okay.
both within the UAE and globally?
Yeah. So the plan does a pretty good job of laying out who the competition is in the UAE. They talk about the Abu Dhabi Stem Cell Center,
Okay.
or ADSCC.
Gotcha.
And that was established in 2018.
Uh-huh.
They acknowledge that this is the first and most experienced stem cell transplant center in the UAE, and that they have, a good amount of resources.
Right.
But they also point out that ADSCC started its research and patent development later,
Gotcha.
right, than some of the other players out there. And that they don't really have this, what they call a healing trip concept,
Okay.
which seems to be part of Gulford's, potential strategy.
Right. And are there any other competitors that are in the UAE itself?
Yeah, so they mentioned Bioscience in Dubai, which was actually founded earlier in 2014.
Okay.
They focus on personalized cell therapy,
Mm-hmm.
especially for beauty and anti-aging.
Okay.
And they acknowledge that Bioscience is actually the first stem cell clinic in the whole Middle East,
Wow.
and that they've got a pretty well-established service offering.
Okay.
But again, similar to ADSCC, they say that Bioscience is mainly focused on just providing the service,
Okay.
and not so much on this whole healing trip idea.
Now, this healing trip thing, it's pretty intriguing. Like, can you expand on what you think that might involve?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear healing trip, I think about something more than just the medical treatment itself.
Right.
Right. So maybe there's a focus on wellness.
Okay.
Maybe you recover in a really, nice environment. Yeah, it could be appealing to people traveling from other countries who are looking for treatment, but also want a nice place to recover.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It's about the whole experience.
Yeah, the whole package.
Yeah.
Now, they also talk about China as this really major global player in the stem cell industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does Gulf Forward see its relationship with China playing out?
Well, so they don't mention any specific collaborations here.
Right.
But the fact that they even highlight, how big China is, it suggests to me that they're probably looking at partnerships.
Yeah.
Maybe technology transfer.
Right.
They want to take advantage of the expertise coming out of that market.
Yeah.
And we know that that market is moving really fast.
For sure.
And also, they mentioned earlier some experts who were affiliated with Chinese universities.
Right.
So that all kind of, points in that direction.
It makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does Go Forward see as its own strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats?
Yeah.
They actually lay those out pretty clearly in the plan, which is great.
Yeah, it's always good to see how a company looks at itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do they list as their big strengths?
So they say their strengths are they have leading technology. They're tapping into this huge market demand, which we've already talked about.
Right.
They're benefiting from a lot of policy support within the UAE. They have a great location.
Right.
Presumably to attract both local and international patients.
Makes sense.
And they've got lots of cooperation opportunities.
Okay. That sounds like a pretty strong foundation.
Yeah. No, they're definitely a good spot.
But what about challenges? What are they worried about?
So they acknowledge a few weaknesses. One is that the laws and regulations are, maybe not perfect yet.
Sure.
Because this field is still developing.
Right.
They're also worried about, cultural differences and language barriers, right? When you're dealing with patients and employees from all over the world.
Yeah.
Regulatory uncertainties, which are, very specific to stem cell therapies.
Right.
They're worried about a shortage of qualified researchers in the region. And then, of course, the constant need to raise enough money to keep this whole thing going.
Right. That makes sense.
The capital investment pressure.
Okay. And then on the flip side of that, what opportunities are they most excited about?
So they see a few really promising areas.
Mm-hmm.
New opportunities coming out of, how the world is responding to things like the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
Maybe in terms of research or long-term treatment.
Right.
They see the medical tourism market growing, which is, a big thing internationally.
Yeah.
They're excited about, new technology coming out all the time.
Right.
International collaboration, again, pointing to those global connections.
Right.
And then just the overall growing demand for these stem cell therapies.
Okay.
And they also specifically mention, the government policies and tax benefits as ongoing opportunities.
Right. Now, I'm also curious about threats. What are they what do they see as potential threats moving forward?
So they point to a few things. Intense competition from, the big players around the world.
Sure.
The technical risks that come with doing this kind of cutting edge research.
Right.
Market risks. What if the adoption of these therapies is slower than they expect?
Yeah.
Or what if patient preferences change?
Right.
And then just, the market in general can be really volatile.
Right.
So they're thinking about those things.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean, it's good to be aware of those potential, headwinds. Now, they also touch on their marketing strategy in the plan.
Yeah.
Which is obviously critical for any new business.
Oh, for sure. If you want to reach new customers.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what's their approach?
So their approach is really interesting because it's pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
They're really emphasizing these personalized one-on-one consultations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like really tailoring the service.
Right.
To what the individual needs.
Yeah.
They also want to offer a whole range of different products. So, stem cell therapies, immune cell therapies, biologics, and even, stem cell derived skincare products.
Okay.
So they're really going broad.
Wow.
Right. And their promotion's going to be all over the place. They're going to use internet marketing, go to conferences and exhibitions, leverage their personal connections and partnerships. Advertise in health publications, email marketing, and even, like the old school advertising.
Wow. So they're really pulling out all the stops.
Yeah, they're not leaving anything on the table.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the expertise behind Go Forward.
Okay.
Because they really do highlight, this diverse team of experts.
Yeah.
And even mention some specific patents that they hold.
Yeah. So the expert team is really impressive.
Yeah.
We're talking about people from institutions like the Japan Medical Association, Haining University, Tongji University, Fudan University, and the Shaanxi Stem Cell Society.
Wow, that's quite a quite a lineup.
Yeah, and their expertise covers like all the bases.
Yeah.
Right.
What are some of the areas that they have expertise in?
So cell proliferation, tumor control, the basic stem cell research, molecular genetics, cord blood banking, pediatrics, rheumatology, gene DNA methylation, tumor biotherapy, traditional Chinese medicine approaches for ovarian repair, stem cell DC injection technology, neurology, and anti-aging.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, they've got it all covered. And what's really interesting to me is how much international expertise they've got.
Right.
So, for example, that strong Japanese connection, that could mean that they're going to focus on certain types of research, or that they've got access to some really advanced technology from Japan, which is Japan's known for that.
Right.
And then having those Chinese affiliations, that could mean that they've got insights into what's happening in China, which is just exploding in the stem cell research world.
For sure. Okay. And what about the patents that they highlighted?
Right.
What do those tell us about their capabilities?
So they specifically mentioned 2 patents.
Okay.
And that's a big sign that they're serious about innovation.
Yeah.
The first patent is for a method of isolating umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells.
Okay.
And they say this method, it's really efficient. It keeps the cells in good shape.
Right.
And it makes the whole process of growing them much faster.
Okay.
So this could give them a real edge in producing these high-quality stem cells.
Gotcha.
And the second patent is for an in vitro method of culturing cord blood CIK cells.
Okay.
And this method, they say it's serum-free.
Okay.
And it uses special additives to increase the number of these immune cells and how active they are.
Okay.
Which is really important for immunotherapy. Right. So the fact that they have these patents, it means that they're not just offering, the stuff that's already out there.
Right.
They're actually developing their own method.
Yeah, that's huge.
And that could be a big difference maker for them.
Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about money.
Yeah.
So their financial projections.
Right.
Let's just touch on those briefly.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of their financial outlook.
So the plan includes, details about how much they want to invest and how much profit they think they're going to make.
Right.
Now, they don't get into the nitty-gritty of the investment here, but they do say that they expect the income from their services to keep growing over time.
Okay.
As their beauty and health offerings and treatments and cell storage services, as those, take off.
Right.
What's really interesting to me, though, is that they expect that the money they make from their research, so, like licensing their patents, technology transfer agreements, selling new products.
Right.
They think that's going to be the biggest part of their revenue eventually.
Wow.
Right. Which really just kind of underscores how much they're focused on R&D.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just about, making money from the services right away.
Right.
It's about, getting those big returns from their breakthroughs and their intellectual property.
Yeah. Okay. So to bring this deep dive to a close, what are the big takeaways here? What's Gulf Forward all about?
So I think the main thing here is that Gulf Forward, they're really trying to take advantage of this huge growth that's happening in the stem cell market, both in the UAE and around the world.
Right.
They're setting themselves up in a really in a supportive environment in the UAE.
Yeah.
And they're going after those big health problems.
Yeah.
Like diabetes and cancer.
Yeah, right.
And their strategies, it's smart. They've got a wide range of services.
Yeah.
They've brought in experts from all over the world.
Right.
And they're really focused on turning their research into real treatments.
Yeah, right. And they even threw in those success stories, which, they may not be proof.
Right.
But they're definitely compelling.
Yeah, totally.
Adds to their ambition.
For sure. And for you, the listener, we're trying to give you that quick but thorough understanding of this whole field.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of taken this deep dive into Gulf Forward, what they're doing.
Yeah.
We've talked about the market.
Totally.
We've talked about the science. We've talked about the business side of it.
Exactly. And thinking about those ambitious goals that they have, those examples of those stem cell interventions working.
Yeah.
It really raises a really important question. What are the biggest challenges? What are the hurdles that a company like Gulf Forward's going to face when they try to take these advancements from the lab
and turn them into something that's widely available?
Yeah.
And make it a success.
Yeah. Expert speaker.